Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, good.
Hello,
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm fine.
So yeah, pretty loose today. No official presentations. This is also probably the last meetup that I'll want to do in this version of the hubs room. I've kind of been procrastinating on actually updating the fork of the client that it's
Did you
using.
try the Vive verse?
No, I've not tried the Vivers thing yet. Isn't their whole platform based on hubs at least originally?
I don't know. I don't know.
That was the impression I got the last time I saw it, I think.
I
But you're
guess
going.
Jin.
Oh, sorry, God.
I guess Jin already tried it.
Oh, did he? Did he have some words about it?
I don't know, but knowing him, he probably already tried it, and maybe he'll have some feedback.
Hmm.
Well, are you going to quit running the Discord then? Oh, the hubs Discord channel thing. This world.
It's that I'm right now. This is still part of the like stock community edition install. Like it's using
Mhm.
the base image from like Mozilla still. So I want to update it to be on like my fork, basically, for whenever it
Uh,
builds. So then I can start pushing some changes onto it because I don't know how long it's going to take for upstream hubs to start doing feature stuff. I think efforts are still kind of limited over on their end.
yeah.
You have time to do this?
I mean, I have lots of free time. It's just the last bit I've been updating Servo's WebXR stuff. So it's kind of been like my project for the last month.
Yeah.
Which it's looking pretty good now. Before I started doing stuff, the WPT pass rates were like hovering around 5%, and now it's at 51. Which also funny thing about that, there was a half of those tests that I got to start passing was just fixing like a resource used to like set up the tests. Um, it's like because a lot of the WPT WebXR stuff was contributed by Chrome guys, um, and so there's like a lot of the tests are written without explicit body elements, and so in like HTML parsing, it's supposed to just insert that later if it starts detecting elements that don't belong in a head. Um, but like there is like a timing issue because Chromium has like extra setup to do before it starts running the tests, which I think was enough time to like let that body tag be generated, but Servo doesn't do that. So
Mhm.
it was trying to append a canvas to the document body while the document body did not exist. And so half the tests
I
just failed.
I might disappear in a few minutes because there are rocket alarms in a nearby city. So
No
Hmm.
I
way.
guess I guess it will be fine. But
Hmm.
I'm stopping my
Ah,
microphone now. So
Hmm.
and putting you on out of my on the speakers, not on my headphones, so I'll be able to hear from far.
Understood.
Yeah.
damn.
Okay.
Mm.
Be right back.
Okie
Yes.
ducks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like mentioned that casual.
Yeah, that is something. How's your JS13K been going?
It's I didn't have a really good idea until yesterday. Well, I just chose the easy way
Mm.
yesterday. Um, I was thinking of doing a game where you are in a hotel room
Mm.
um, that is haunted, but you are the ghost. You are hunting that bedroom,
Mm.
and then you have to scare away guests. I thought that was a funny idea. Making use of the microphone so you can yell in the microphone to scare
Oh
people away.
yeah.
But that was the first concept I had in mind, and I think I can build that in 13 kilobytes, but only yelling at someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a game.
Yeah.
So I really started thinking what I should do, and in the meantime, I rebuilt a tiny WebXR engine based on I think Xem built a WebGL thing in a few kilobytes,
Mm.
and I reused that, adjusted that to support WebXR with hand tracking now since yesterday. And it's really really tiny, but it has some great features to use, like um, grouping of objects, for example. Uh, and the great thing is that, but because it's grouping for the hand tracking yesterday, I just added two default groups, for one for the left hand, one for the right hand, and that's just there. If you don't want hands, you just do nothing with it, but it updates a group that's not rendering. But if you want an object on the left hand, you just add an object to the left hand group, and it moves with the left hand automatically. The setup of this thing is so easy. You don't have to do anything. You just say, I want this. If you don't specify it, it takes the default ID of a button to enter XR, or you can specify which button it is. It takes care of everything else. If you want an object, you just say, I want this object. I need to add something add to be able to add your own code to the update loop, so you can add animations and have stuff walk around. Um, but yeah, the original came with a few 3D objects. I only implemented a cube and a plane in
Mm.
this version. The plane also can be a billboarding plane, which is really handy. Um, yeah, so it's basically just a really really tiny uh, WebXR engine. And yesterday I decided that if I can get it in such a good state, maybe after this year and next year, other people might try it to build something with it. Then yeah, then it's a win for me. I don't have to win the contest, but if someone decides to try out my little framework for a game for JS15K, that would be amazing.
You just got to win the minds of future participants.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to revisit my frameworkless entry from last year, which would have been like a maze type thing, but I don't know. I feel like I like opened it up and I just couldn't find like motivation to try building off of what was already there because I was using Cody's 4 library.
Yeah, I tried it last year too.
Yeah, it takes up like 9 kilobytes even gzipped though, which is a little unfortunate because that is like over half your budget.
That's a lot.
So I don't know
But
if
if
I
it has a lot of features, then
yeah like familiar 3JS API, which is nice, but yeah, I don't know if I might just do an A-frame thing if I can find the time. Because I'd like to submit something to one of these at some point. I just always get like sidetracked and never finish.
yeah, it's the one. For me, it's the one contest that I really, really try to finish something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tough finding time with um, the moment that it starts. It's still the end of the summer vacation here.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow, my youngest is going to school again after the summer, first day.
Mm.
So that's always there around. So I cannot do anything. And in the weekend, yeah, I need to do chores around the house. Still working on the garden. So yeah, I only have the evenings.
Yo.
Hey.
Hey, you're back.
Yeah. Well, at least I know if I do an A-frame one, I'll have Diego's favor on that.
Yes, I was thinking that as well. It's just, maybe I should do A-frame this year.
Gotta get the judges in our pockets.
Yeah. On the other hand, it should be bad if A-frame, if there are only A-frame entries win because he's the judge.
Well, they have a few WebXR people this time around. I think they have Fernando, who
Yeah.
I know did original Jumpy Balls.
I'm not sure. I thought it was 3 or 4 WebXR judges.
I wonder what he's doing now in at Apple.
Yeah.
Like, is it browser related? I don't know.
So hard to tell what anyone that's moved to Apple is doing now.
They're so secret about it.
Yeah. Like, I know Morna Magoro or Imanol Fernandez, I think, does like graphics work at Apple now, just based off the or not at Apple, at Meta. So I guess that's the only person I know who moved that I remember the title of. But yeah, it's like we don't even really know what Ada's role at Apple is now, aside from being AR VR related.
Yeah.
Do you think Apple will allow WebXR AR on the Vision Pro someday in the future?
I sure hope so, considering how much of the draw of that headset is like working in mixed reality.
It's such it will be great for AR if iPhones would support.
Yeah. iOS Safari is sure taking back the WebXR support. I'm sure that once AR, WebXR AR on iOS, on iPhone, will be available, it will push the WebXR a lot, mainly because of gimmick stuff for advertisers. But those gimmick types, they push tech in the end. And from there, people make something that is actually usable. Because for now, they all are using like Eighth Wall or Zapier, and not looking on WebXR.
Yeah, it definitely would be good to finally get it there. Like, you could absolutely power like immersive AR sessions with like AR kit. I'm pretty sure it's just a matter of internal motivation and I guess engineering effort.
Yeah. I guess it's priorities.
I saw somebody say something, sorry, about full screen. There was a problem with full screen mode
On iOS.
on iOS, and they're not able to use the full strength of the GPU because of it for some reason. I didn't catch the argument exactly.
I've heard similar stuff. Yeah.
I think it's like a UX UI related issue of the iOS, because they have like the bottom thingy there, that if you drag it exit the app or something like that, and it had like UX issues. It's not like they removed it because like UX bugs and not because they don't want it or something like that. At least from the threads that I saw on Twitter and such.
One good news thing I saw was that one of the AVP developer guys, he's kind of Alex, he's from New York. He does stuff with digital theater. He has a thing called he does a Christmas show with Ghost of Christmas Is Past, and but he uses Unreal Engine and streams it and does. He's a developer, but he was saying that he's had good luck when he files feedback cases with AVP, like the team is actually watching the channels and things, and so
Yeah.
maybe there's space to provide guidance.
You said Unreal streaming. Is this the Eyebrews guy on Twitter?
Yeah,
I recognize him. I see his posts every now and again.
Ada was also active in the browsers in Discord, the browsers channel about issues in AVP.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see someone from Apple also commenting in this channel.
If only because she was already there before moving to Apple.
The other guy who's with Apple on that team that's sometimes in the Discord for WebXR is Brendel. Brendel. Brendal.
Not Tojiki or something like that. Not Tojiro.
I'll find
because
it.
he's from Google.
He was the guy that did the other talk on the immersive apps in Safari. He's a slender guy.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
He's in the group that is you remember there was a guy who did a presentation here. They're called the Future of Text.
Yeah.
Text for AR VR. He's in that membership. He's a group. He meets with them every week, and he's quite closely connected.
Right.
Oh, I don't know if I might be the only person that knows because I bother to check, but so I'm sure people saw recently Chrome finally did a intent to prototype for WebXR web GPU bindings, and the initial interface setup stuff for that was actually merged into Chromium not too long ago from Brandon.
So it's something that we can already try in nightly
I don't think it's hooked up yet, but it's making the interfaces for it, to do the function calls. So I imagine there's probably more work coming on that soon. Oh, he disappeared.
Oh.
Hope he's doing all right.
Yeah. I missed the. I followed the email subscription. I'm the Blink development for Chromium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only reason I know about the interface stuff is because I checked the Chromium code review site that they use for reviewing merge sets and stuff like that, which I don't know how many people know about. But yeah, that's gives some of the best early indications of stuff that's coming to Chromium. That's how I've checked and seen that Alex Cooper has been doing a lot of work supporting some kind of Android OpenXR work on there, which I imagine for a future headset. I recognize that handle.
He's done a few WebXR kind of samples and things from way back when, and yeah, he's an interesting guy. Did anybody see the news? There was some one of the he's a developer for what they call XR workout or VR workout team, and he's a his name's Michael, and he did a kind of hair pinning loop back feed of the Quest streaming shared screen back into the headset, and was able to do some basic computer vision on the feed, so
Oh
you
yeah, I
could
remember seeing that.
to the headset. I think that's and there's a couple guys that have run with it and made different sort of experiments in that space. And one guy can get an April tag working with a model placed on it as you move it around in the in free space, and that's I think a big it's a big addition if you're interested in being able to process what's in the actual video feed.
What was the latency like on it though?
Yeah, I think they were doing 30 frames a second.
Okay, that's better than I was expecting.
They had to do a pretty small model, so they could run a big computer vision model. It was pretty limited, and the I'll find the one guy's got a GitHub already set up, and it's very preliminary work, but it seems to be it's working, which means that there's enough engine power in there to both throw something into the space and display it while doing all the computations necessary to process the location of what you're tracking on the video feed.
What?
Everything okay?
Yeah.
It's
Sorry,
good to
just
say this.
Okay. Anyone working on some cool projects?
okay. I'm back.
I'm more in the research than develop mode at the moment, so I'm interested in finding stuff.
Hrithik, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm also working on something very cool. So what I'm trying is that I'm still working on hubs itself. So in hubs we already have physics enabled. So from ammo physics, I'm trying to change it to rapier, and with rapier, I'm trying to change this nav mesh to physics based nav mesh. That is my cool project.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jin, you mentioned VRMs. Are you still doing that Was that the stuff that you're uploading to Arweave or different project?
I did that part. I just exported all the voxels avatars. That's 3,700 VRMs. I just been doing stuff with Tubbies. That's 20,000 VRMs. I just finished Anata. That's 2,000 VRMs. I am pitching Oni Force, which is 7,777 VRMs, and writing a deck for pitching another project, which is another 10,000. But trying to figure out optimization pipelines now, which I'm finding some really good results with voxels because I don't have any shape keys. They compress well with Draco. So trying to see how I can get some Draco optimized VRMs.
I feel like you've seen. Oh, sorry. I feel like you've seen more VRMs than like a large majority of people.
Yeah, I'm all in the guts of it, and I've been also like trying to find people to help with the VRM documentation because like there's the one part of the website that I always shill, which is the showcase page on their DocuSource, and it used to be not as fancy with the cards that they have now, but now that they have this, when you stumble upon it, you're just scrolling through broken images, descriptions missing. It's just a mess. So like I've been trying to find help because I've got all these other VRM projects to like, I don't know, offer bounties or DoorDash to spruce this up. But it's looking like I'm just gonna have to do it myself. It's one of those frustrations with open source projects. It's like not my problem, you know, and just kind of like, how can we find people to kind of? I just love the Needle Tools team. Like, I want to find ways to like give them money or champion them somehow because they do contribute upstream all the time to like PRs, to standards groups, to libraries they're using. They're like the role model for this shit.
Yeah, they're the reason there's Vanilla.js support for like the new React XR stuff at all. I think they were like one of the initial sponsors for that.
Dude, I see them everywhere. Like Herbst, he's if you're like in the trenches, you'll see him there as well. Like in those discussions and issues and PRs everywhere.
Yeah, he's definitely like, if they do another developer of the year for Poly Awards,
he's got my
definitely
vote.
a candidate.
Oh yeah. But yeah. Then it's like a lot of back and forth talking to developers of these platforms to kind of get an understanding of their process. Like I find, on Cyber, for example, they have a very strict upload limit of 8 megabytes for a custom avatar. And so to kind of meet that requirement, we built a KTX pipeline, and that gets the job done for a lot. However, in V2, something kind of broke. They are kind of doing KTX on upload for mobile devices, which is cool. But just kind of like discussing, okay, like what is the kind of best guidelines for releasing avatars for like the ultimate platform compatibility, and there isn't like a single source of truth guideline for creators anywhere. You know, it's very specific to all these different platforms. So kind of working on collecting various guides, documentation, all this kind of research, and try and publish something, but looks like I'm gonna be doing multiple versions. One that I'm gonna have to do that anyways, because I'm making versions that have all the blend shapes with ARKit. One that don't have all the blend shapes because they add a lot of file size, and a lot of web platforms don't have ways to utilize all that. And one thing I really want to get more adoption of, I've only seen 3.0v implement such, but animated sprite sheets would be really cool for imposter systems, because you can get like a walk cycle and like 100 kilobytes, you know, of a sprite sheet, and they look really cool and they look pretty good from a distance, but even up close, I like the retro look.
Has 3.0v been getting updates recently? I haven't checked in on it in a while.
It is been mostly a kind of like IK sort of just in the final stretch of figuring out IK to be good enough.
I see.
And then there's also Toybox, which I'm planning to experiment with, because the thing that I'm really interested in exploring with all these VRM projects is like, can we have some wearables interoperate with other base meshes? And with Character Studio, a lot of these ideas kind of can all come together in this kind of kitchen. It's like, say, you know, we're implementing wallet support, so it reads that you own such and such avatars. All the wearables kind of then get disassembled into your like inventory / wardrobe, and then you could like mix and match based on what's compatible with your base mesh. And we're looking into ways of making that fitting more seamless in the app, kind of like how Roblox and now Ready Player Me is doing it, but you know, an open source pipeline, which is like, God, why? It's like we're taking on such huge challenges that these giant companies are doing, which is awesome. It's like disruptive, but it's also like to push forward avatar wearable interoperability. It's like the indies that are really doing a lot here for that movement.
Views on A-frame selected for 2024 GitHub Accelerator. I'm happy for him. I'm glad I got selected.
That's good news. I think A-frame and the general sort of like AI LLM creation stuff that Diego's leaning into is it's just gonna get really more powerful over time.
Yeah, I see a lot of the most recent one he did where he like took a picture of the elements and then asked it to make a scene that like was the same arrangement. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've not tried to create something like that. I'm pretty curious how it works. Or if it just works. But I can imagine there has to be some specific prompts to get the right information, the right format to get it to work.
Oh, it's got to be specific, because I mean, if you're just going off an API, it's going to be outdated. I think he got some help from a friend that I know who helped train, like, based on all the latest documentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've did it too for a lot of WebXR stuff and a lot of I have all my AI, most of my AI running on Azure. So I did the same thing with Azure. So I can just ask questions about up to date things on Azure. It was pretty cool.
Oh,
So it has to be
nice.
something like that, I think, or maybe even further to really fine tune the model to always get correct data. Could be done, but it's cool.
Oh, good. My PR for XR bounded reference space is going into merge queue now.
Cool.
It was interesting. I noticed the implementation that I've done for Servo is the first one I've seen that correctly visualizes the bounds geometry for a bounded reference space. In the Quest browser right now, if you try to load the like example that shows it off, it actually just breaks, which I find interesting because I'm not sure what the underlying cause of that would even be. But Chrome Desktop returns just an empty array of points. So yeah, this will be the most functional version of that now, I think, which is pretty cool. I want to start looking into like WebXR layer support next because there's like a bunch of scaffolding in Servo for it, but like not really anything that's hooked up yet. So that's probably a big project. And then I remember somebody else mentioning, hey, you should get Servo working as a backend for Wolvik, which well, I agree would be a great project, but also it would take so much work because you have to abstract out the WebXR rendering stuff because they've moved to OpenXR. So I would have to figure out how to do all of the stuff that's happening right now that's Direct 3D specific and figure out how to do that with like OpenGL, yes, which I don't really know because I'm not super graphics brained, but yes, that's kind of like a long term goal, I guess, for working on this.
Interesting. One person who is kind of graphics brained and is very knowledgeable on OpenGL is Nick from Substrata. He made a web client. It's the native client compiled to Wasm, but he's like really low level, smart about rendering.
So Substrata has a web viewer thing now?
Yeah, it's very good actually. It loads fast in the browser. If you go to substrata.info, the demo's right on the site. He was looking into WebXR support next. The whole project's open source too.
Nice. Yeah,
I'm looking into Substrata for vehicles. Been talking with the OMI group about doing this kind of metaverse festival in Substrata next. We did it in Hyperfy, but want to kind of port everything over.
How has OMI been?
I would say that the extensions group is doing a lot in terms of creating things, but what's really needed is implementers, and that's where it kind of falls short. And I'm kind of biased because I see a lot of solutions in crypto for the challenges that they're encountering, like valuing implementers' time for some of these things. Like a little bit of bounty money can go a long way in that. I've seen it. Or for people that are doing documentation or outreach efforts, all this kind of stuff. It's a lot of friction managing these types of systems from Open Collective. But attendance is good every week. On the community calls, there's at least 10, 12 people. It's consistent, and then the more people are joining the extensions meetup every Thursday.
That's good. Have you been keeping up with what is it, Metaverse Standards Forums?
Yes, I have. A lot, actually. It's one of those things where it's like, well, my contribution lately, it's in a way sort of going to be agnostic of MSF, but I've been using all the data I've gotten from MSF for kind of proving some points and doing a test drive of just taking a whole bunch of transcripts and meeting recordings from an org, because I know a lot of orgs that like primarily use GitHub and Zoom. So I'm building tools around analyzing all this Zoom and GitHub data and creating a knowledge base, and then out of that knowledge base also creating knowledge graphs using GraphRag or something, and then doing a Blender pipeline with geometry nodes with that as well, or representing it in force graphs. And then yeah, just looking at the whole org from a very high level view, perhaps even like spatializing it, kind of like a virtual expo. But yeah, as you kind of look through the whole thing, it's like, wow, it's all from a sort of meta point, it's all Google Slides, and it's very corpo feeling. And
the main thing I'm curious about is that have they, for being a standards group, have they like actually made any draft specs yet?
They're not a standards group. They say that on a website. The standards development orgs are kind of a part of the constellations of standards that you kind of see on the website below. What MSF is kind of more like a forum where they can all gather. So it's more like a hub. That's why the conference idea, I feel, is very fitting for them.
I see.
But when it comes to results and whatnot, I just see like, for example, like I'm co-chair of the digital fashion group there. And we do a lot of presentations, and we get to hear from people that are working in a space, and it's nice because I wouldn't have really kind of heard or seen some of these folks interested in these sets of challenges otherwise. But it's kind of struggling to get past show and tell to kind of working on some of our goals and objectives. And M3 is doing a lot of that legwork, like funded by these avatar projects, for example. But yeah, the MSF itself, my strategy is like get all the data. I'm just walking around Substrata right now. It's a really cool world. Find a way to gather all the data and get some AI to kind of help also kind of be in the strategy space with me to kind of figure out, okay, like who can we contact, who might be aligned, who's working on what, and because we have these occasional meetings between co-chairs of all the groups to kind of share what all the groups are working on. Again, it's on Zoom. And then it's like really hard to retrieve notes and any information afterwards. And I think this is a issue just for remote organizations in general.
Are there any other particularly active groups in the MSF?
The most active is the 3D asset one between GLTF and USD. Definitely got the most attendance when I'm like looking at all the slides that people bring there, like the quality level is 5x of the other groups, and a lot of that's the one that the Cesium and the Epic Games guy are co-chairs of. There was a very good talk by Herbst there last maybe a few weeks ago, and he was talking about everywhere actions and GLTF USD interrupt and interactivity as well. And I feel that Needle Tools is like ahead of the KHR interactivity spec for interactive GLTFs. Like they had kind of like feature parity with kind of looking at iOS some quick look actions and whatnot, and just kind of like picking a common subset of interactions that you can do. And their example demo file was like a musical instrument of buttons that worked from Blender, 3JS, Unity, and iOS as well, just with their native 3D file viewer. It was really impressive. Yeah, if you want like GLTF USD interactivity / interop alpha, I would look at Needle Tools documentation for everywhere actions.
Yeah, maybe I will do that, because I haven't kind of dived into Needle's stuff in a while now.
Their website, including their examples, is like a treasure mine. There's one thing that I saw there. I heard Herbs talk about it before, but then I saw an example. It was a app that they released. I think it's on like the Meta Labs, whatever. It's a recorder, and it records like your avatar with all the blend shapes and the audio, and then you can replay it, in the browser and WebXR like a ghost file.
Oh, interesting. One thing I feel like
I would love to use them.
Is people using like pre-recorded VR like motions as sort of like a faux mocap type thing and experiences.
Yeah, I think it would be great for like virtual production, because after you record something, like you could also interpolate like the frames, and you could do some really crazy stuff in that way. But you're right. Like I think it's an underrated. I guess it could get kind of like repetitive though. Like,
I think the main barrier
it's like an
is
NPC.
probably like there's not a great workflow for doing that.
True. Like what I've seen in VR chat, it's very hacked together with duct tape.
You have to build everything.
Stuff too, yeah.
There's no single kind of file container yet for like recorded avatars. It was impressive with what Needle did. Like it was their whole thing is GLTF. But like in VR chat, shader motion, which is what a lot of people use, you're recording the motion and pixel shader on the side of your screen, and then you can like convert the MP4 to like a BVH file, and then from BVH, bring it into whatever program.
But that means you can edit the motion you recorded?
Yeah. Yeah, I've tested mocap tools between VR chat and Neos, and also just like workflows with web, like Hyperfy and all these other things. Yeah, it's tricky because it's like going between FBX and then GLTF and BVH. I'll link my notes in the chat. I need to add needle tools to it. And speaking of notes, like this topic came up at MSF recently, and while OMA 3 was talking about their new GPT bot for MSF to use, and someone brought up like something about animation interoperability, and then kind of asked, who is working on such, and M3 never came up. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I should migrate all my dev logs to a proper knowledge base framework, something for discovery.
Yeah, I feel like,
but I don't know what to call it.
just mocap in general feels like really unexplored in VR outside of like specific communities that have been doing it, like the oh geez, I forget their names, but it's like the virtual theater people that use hubs for their productions.
Yeah, there's groups in VR chat and Neos as well, like Metamovie.
I was thinking
But the
specifically
VR chat scene.
Instances of it, because I know VR chat and the other social platforms have some existing stuff there, but like in WebXR, that like Hubs Theater group is the only one that immediately comes to mind.
I think it would be cool to like replay conference videos or something. Like, I'm just kind of wondering if there's ways we could take mocap from videos and then bring it into WebXR and then do like simulcasting or something. Maybe that can be a cool way of finding WebXR to kind of enmesh with the wider ecosystem.
I've never tried the video to mocap tools. There are some AR powered things, but
yeah, they're always getting better. Probably by now there's some really good stuff out there. I guess it's just getting faster in terms of latency, but if someone was streaming like a talk, they would need to like kind of focus on the speaker the whole time. Otherwise, like tracking would go missing in like maybe a simulcasted version on web.
It would be really, really cool to do it in real time. But yeah, you have to have a stream or video at least of a speaker being on screen completely, not zoomed in, not only the top half, not only the head, just a complete body in on screen the whole time.
Wouldn't like exercise be good also? Like, I don't know, a yoga instructor just or fitness instructor, you could learn form, or you could record it yourself, and then like your remote fitness instructor could, it's like a remote it's like a 4D video call in a way.
But in those cases it has to be perfect. You don't want, if it's like for a workout, you don't want to take a risk that the mocap AI just twists some arm in an odd way, and you try telling someone to just you have to move your arm in that way.
It would be very confusing. Yeah,
like the thing where like your body collapses when you take your headset off.
Yeah, something like that. I tried that dropping thing you did, but it didn't work out very well. Yeah. I think
in
for
Shapes,
is Shapes. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
in Shapes XR, they have a feature where you can leave like walkthrough for other people who come into it asynchronously into the same room. They click the button, and then it's a recording of what your avatar was doing while you were recording, pointing, walking around, looking at different parts of the experience that is are in the room, so you can do sort of a live walkthrough asynchronously.
That's cool. That would work
Have
if you
you
do a presentation in VR.
have you all ever
Does that
seen these?
sorry,
Oh, no, go ahead.
does that record screen capture as well? If I do a screen capture in VR, I need to play the screen capture as well.
In Shapes, that's not a it's not a feature. They don't share the screen inside there, but you have developed your you've put your assets wherever they are. So you've built, for instance, this room, and it could see you walking around pointing at different objects on the wall, or uh, how you constructed the stairs onto the stage, or you could walk through and explain things. Um, and that's recorded, and it's your full avatar being replayed when you look at it after the fact, somebody else doing it. And you can change your so you can resize yourself, and all of that is it's independent of the viewer. So the sometimes you're talking to an avatar that's 50 meters tall, and sometimes you're talking to an avatar that's 50 centimeters tall.
Yeah, I was thinking that game show would be great for like a VR game show to utilize full body tracking.
Yeah, because I mean, there's already that one app that does it, like O Shape, I think.
Oh wait, what?
Yeah, there's a VR game that is basically that. Native only though. It would be neat to have a WebXR one, but I feel like that kind of game really shines when you do have the full body tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
The it's interesting. The Pico comes with it now. I think
Yeah,
as
I
a
was just
start,
about
the
to
new
say I saw.
Pico 4 has that standard.
They do full body tracking.
They have like feet trackers.
Oh, you have to, so you put controllers, so to speak, on your feet, and then they track those as well.
Yeah, it's like these tiny little puck type things. It'd be interesting
They
if
say they have
those
like
got exposed to their WebXR.
Technically, it should be
the,
possible. It's just the controllers are an array, so you could have just 4 controllers then, or 26 if you have
and
26. Also.
they have UV lights on the foot tracker thing. So they say there's a little article right up in that I read. I don't know the link I followed, but it was saying they can get very quick. They said 97% accuracy. I don't know how they pre-train these things. The computer model is obviously um, the IK version of what they do. They say they can lose. It originally gets calibrated just by looking at it. So when you first put them on and you start, you look at your feet, and then everything is sort of adjusted from there.
That's interesting. Yeah, we have been looking in the past into how we could track anything, not feet, but anything. And there are ways of tracking things with either QR codes or um, HTC Vive has those things you can attach to, but those are really big. And
what
we
about
wanted to
Sam
have
2?
Sam 2. I don't know what Sam 2 is.
Meta's open source AI model for video tracking.
The
We
Beijing one?
yeah, but that didn't. Well, I'm talking about 3-4 years ago,
Oh, okay.
and we're working on the Hololens back then. We needed to track things in the Hololens. not even WebXR, just track things, and the only thing we could track were the hands or um, a QR code.
Tracking on SAM2 is crazy. Like, I'm just kind of thinking a really dank kind of app would be just segment something and then add a filter. Like when Deep Dream came out, there was some really cool art that I saw where somebody didn't try and deep dream everything, but only some things in a scene. And it just made it look way better rather than just like, your whole vision. Um, and there's so many different filters out there, like Snap or just your phone camera. You know how you've got all these different filters? Like, I just wonder, why isn't there like a thing where you can just kind of view reality through all these crazy filters?
We were
In
talking
XR.
about that a little bit earlier. The experiment that somebody's done with running the video that is meant for screen sharing to the, when you're streaming
Oh, the
your,
Quest. Yeah. I saw that.
and they're hairpinning it and running it back into the device, and they're able to put it through a computer vision model and track. You can track, you can identify things in your surroundings, and they do have one with a QR code April tag type thing that is that you can then put some kind of SLAM device against, and put some, render something on a mesh that's connected to that
That's cool.
object you're detecting and tracking.
I've been looking at Project Aria docs at like thinking, okay, like they have all this information about how they set up their data pipeline, and I don't have a Project Aria device, but I was hypothesizing whether such would be possible with a VR headset, and inside of like, say, you could do Project Aria type things in VR chat, for example. And it sounds like that pipeline maybe it's like a hacky workaround towards it.
Which one is Aria? That's one of the Google X Labs
It's
things,
Meta.
isn't it?
No, it's Meta. Yeah, Meta Reality.
Aria?
Oh, I'll link it in the chat. This is their docs.
Okay.
Some really interesting stuff going on here between AI and AR, but it's like to a computer. What difference does it make whether you're looking at a real scene or a virtual scene? It's like their models are trained on synthetic data.
So, anyone heard about the Amazon Meta hackathon?
Yeah.
Wasn't it this month or something like that?
I think so. If not this month, then September? I actually don't remember the details specifically because I just remember I wasn't able to. I knew I wouldn't be able to make it, so.
Yeah.
Let's see. August 27th through the 29th. So it actually starts in 2 days.
Okay. They didn't hear a lot about it this time. Like last year, I heard more about it than this time.
Yeah, I think that may also be just because I was posting about it more. Unless you were seeing it in like other platforms too.
Both Twitter, the Discord.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what comes out of this one. Because I know there were some really cool entries from the last hackathon. Like the group that Chris Smoke was in had a really nice kind of like sort of affirmation, like leave an audio message for what you're thankful for type thing, and it had like a tree that sprouts up from the ground, and there's a butterfly that like flies around and lands on your fingers, like a very nice effect.
Yeah. I think the mixed reality stuff. I don't like to call it mixed reality because it's AR, but I think that the scene understanding stuff has lots of potential that still not really in use.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to support some of the more of the AR stuff in Servo too. But unlike all the other APIs, that one I would have to start from scratch on. Because I think the only thing in there is like hit test, so there's like no anchors or like meshing or anything.
Yeah. I want like to take the mesh of the environment and do some comparison to like a mesh in a database, and then users from different headsets can can compare those meshes and understand if they are in the same location and position themselves based on that. Like to do like
I've had the same discussion before, and like aligning real world meshes for like a co-located experience.
Yeah, mesh alignment. Because what I'm thinking about is like you can do like real world Internet of Things, and then like, oh, okay, so I have these lights in the room and this device in this place, and control them from every headset, like from Quest or even from your phone, and have the shared location. Like combining it with like Home Assistant.
They had somebody at the AWE, I don't know, vendor booths that was demoing it was some way you could connect your Android watch to a spatially pointing system that you could then control lights and things, your smart home sort of devices. And somehow they had some sort of application that ran on a VR headset that was also involved with that, maybe for calibrating or for setting it up. I just saw that was seems interesting.
Interesting, because phone, not phone, like a watch, it's something that you can calibrate by like the hand position. If you have like the hand position or controller position, you can have like offset, and you know where the phone, where the watch is. Not really like accurate, but mostly accurate.
And I think they did have some kind of IMU it uses the IMU on the watch to kind of provide that world model kind of interface. Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I want to try the Lenovo pen. It's Lenovo, right? That made the pen now that Quest supports.
That's from it's the guys who make the keyboards and stuff. Logitech.
Oh, Logitech. It's Logitech. Okay. I want to try it. Like, it's interesting. Like, how the tracking of it works.
Mm.
Yeah, the MX Ink. Thanks, Jin. Like, I wonder, like, if we're talking about WebXR and the specs, like, is WebXR need to support like every peripheral that that a device can support? And then how? Because we have the controllers. So a pen is like a controller, but then if you have like trackers you can use for the legs, but maybe you can want to, and then like using the body tracking API module will be suffice for that. But maybe you want to like use Vive tracker for another object.
You're saying like, should WebXR support like all these different peripherals?
Yeah. And then how?
Because I
And
think a lot of the functionality or things that get added to WebXR, I think, are partially driven by like the capabilities of the underlying runtimes. Like a lot of the stuff that you see pushed in Quest browser first is like is like meta specific
yeah,
stuff that they're working on.
but they do try to make it generic.
Yeah. I mean, they're like with OpenXR kind of being the standard. There's definitely, I think, more that could be done to support like additional trackers in WebXR because there's multiple extensions for like specifically for trackers. I know HTC has one for theirs, but I don't know if there is an equivalent like multi-vendor one at the moment. I'm also curious how the MX Ink is integrated. If it's like a proper OpenXR tracked object, or if they're just kind of doing some extra stuff in the browser to integrate it.
Uh, Based on needle tools, videos, it seems like it's a controller. It will be like in the WebXR profiles, input profiles.
Oh, it's even got an input profile. Interesting.
Not right now, but
But it will.
it looks like.
Yeah, I could see like. I feel like it's probably not OpenXR, but it probably has some way of like streaming its pose data that they're then just like wrapping in an XR input source. I could imagine.
Hmm.
They should actually
I
do that.
think I think Felix wrote somewhere on the Discord that it's acting like a controller.
Hmm.
I think that one of the issues with the WebXR API in regard to that is that like some some of the references for controllers are based on like right and left,
Mm-hmm.
but a general tracker is none of that.
Yeah, I mean there is a none-handedness for input sources. You just never see
Yeah,
it anywhere because nobody supports anything other than controllers right now.
yeah. In the past, like you had headsets like the Oculus Go or Magic Leap that had only one controller, like a remote controller or Gear VR, and then you didn't have like a hand for it.
Yeah. Actually, I saw a PR to the input profiles recently for like the Magic Leap 2 controller, and it's also the same way. It doesn't have a handedness.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to try and push for like expanded tracked sources support, I guess it is. I just need to figure out like what the actual capabilities are and whether that would be
Yeah.
viable to do cross-platform right now.
And as long as there's no like specific vendor that really push for it, it won't happen.
Yeah.
Like most of the advanced in WebXR in the past 2 years or something like that, it's mostly meta, and I guess it's mostly Rick. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, I need to pick his brains about how he implemented unbounded reference spaces too, because I want to add that to Servo, but I don't know like what it's doing under the hood. If it's just like a local space and they're just kind of like doing some stuff to account for like large movements, or if there's like something else going on with it. Because I know it's OpenXR based. It's just I don't know what the technical parts of it look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bummer that it's not open source.
Yeah.
Like they use Chromium, but not
Yeah.
sharing the code. So
Yeah, because I know because I contributed like hand input stuff to desktop Chromium that Quest browsers probably had for years and years.
yeah,
But yeah, he
yeah.
in the few times I have talked to him about like browser specific stuff, he's just like, oh, if you need to see some code, I'll show you some code. So like, at
Okay.
least he's not holding it close to the chest.
Yeah. And I remember that when you did the hand implementations, he also commented. If not there, he commented in the Discord and explained how stuff was working.
Yeah, it was because I remember we were working out. I was trying to figure out why stuff was breaking when I was checking for like the valid bit in the aim state, and I asked him about it, and he's like, "Oh, we don't check that." And I was like, "Oh, well, that makes sense." It's like if one of the fingers gets occluded for like determining pinch, then that bit goes to 0. But like the pose is still pretty much completely accurate for like functional purposes. It only really breaks if you like turn it towards yourself, which is an uncommon use case. You probably shouldn't expect that to work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The end implementation, like for the Chrome desktop, is really cool. Like I used it a lot. So
Yeah,
thanks.
it's cool. It's like the big, probably the biggest thing I've contributed to Chromium is that patch.
Yeah.
I would like to do pass through at some point.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
also like surprisingly simple, conceptually. You just keep a layer that you submit at the end of your composition layers, and that
Yeah, and I guess you have the Android implementation for reference.
Yeah, the
Because
one
they
thing I can
do
tell,
AirCore.
there is a difference between pass through on headset and pass through on device, because I'm pretty sure it's like encoding and streaming the pass through data to desktop, because you have to turn on developer mode on your Oculus.
Yeah,
to
but
get it.
if it's from the OpenXR, I guess the OpenXR is like a value for the texture pointer.
Yeah, but the other thing too is that there are multiple like additional extensions around pass-through that govern like color type stuff and like other like quality things, which
Yeah.
I probably could implement for better stuff, but I don't know like how they have it set up for Quest for like optimal rendering. So maybe I should ask Rick about that sometime. There's a couple things in Servo that I'd like to figure out that are kind of Quest specific at the moment. Like
Yeah.
the others, like unbounded reference spaces, pretty much only Quest and maybe HoloLens at one point supported it because I know there was an OpenXR extension specifically for like Microsoft unbounded spaces. And then there's the pass-through stuff, and then there's one other thing that is only on Quest at the moment, and I'm blanking.
Are you running like a Linux machine, Ubuntu or something?
I have a Unix laptop because I have Windows, Arch, and FreeBSD on it. See, I'd like to try and do more work getting WebXR working in Servo on Linux too, but that's like that gets into the graphics stuff that I was talking about before because they have like their own kind of wrapper around rendering logic to power WebGL stuff,
Yeah,
surf rendering.
and they have the Monado or something like that.
Yeah, Monado for the runtime, which should work if I could
Oh, happy
figure it
birthday!
out. Oh, happy birthday, Linux! But yeah, it's I've been poking around with it, but just getting textures passed correctly in a way that's not DirectX 11 specific has been a bit of a challenge. And I know Nova Technobabu has done like a little bit of work in this area, but I have no idea like where their implementation is at with it. I know they were having like OpenGL issues trying to actually get anything displaying. I don't even have it like fully building, so something to work on. But yeah, would love to see Servo WebXR on Linux and Android at some point. That'd be like the ultimate goal, like truly cross-platform, minus Apple products. If only because there's no like easy way to do like iOS stuff with Rust, for one thing. Like I have no idea how I would do like ARKit bindings, and I'd have to set up like Xcode on my MacBook and figure out. I also don't have an iPhone to test with, so that's another slight barrier.
I wonder, like, how many people will stop using Windows once, like, the Windows 10 support will end, because it's really soon. And Windows 11 is
I'm
getting
in no hurry to upgrade to 11.
getting worse and worse. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know if it's because like I'm too used to the Windows 10 or because it's really bad.
Yeah. It's like the only reason I'm still on Windows is because there's like games I play that aren't Linux supported, and that's like the primary reason because I don't want to have to context switch just
it's
to
less.
play things.
It's less and less because of the Steam Deck. It really made
I was about to say, switch to the Steam Deck, man.
Yeah, but like I don't want to
VR
go through the hassle of
games.
Genshin Impact on a Linux environment.
Yeah. I mean, I've had no problem with my Steam Deck, and like now, like it's kind of frustrating because the gaming PC that I've built is pretty much going unutilized. Like I've set it up to do like home lab stuff, but it's far too powerful for that crap. because I just, as soon as I got the Steam Deck, I just stopped using it entirely. And I run Mac for the most part, so like whenever I need to do some Linux-based testing, I just like plug in my Steam Deck and use the Linux environment for it.
I'm not a huge Souls-like person, Jin.
Jin, did you try the Viveverse?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Last time I tried it, it was a bit janky. Feel like if I had a connection to Vive, I could save them. I could show them Hyperfi. We could make a deal.
I can fix them.
Accelerate.
They published now like a post about VRM.
Oh, really? Do you have a link to that?
I can look for it. Long.
We need more VRM games, less VRM sort of social.
Because I mean, like, does Bone Lab do VRM, or is it only like FBX?
I thought I saw a mod. Like, there's probably a way. I think that's why I bought Bone Lab.
It's interesting to see like a company like Vive making something with VRM, like for interoperability. Because when you look like on Meta's Horizons, they don't try to do like interop, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I love Vive versus like general sort of idealistic direction with the stack that they're using, but I think they built Viveverse off of a fork of Hubs, and it just kind of came with a lot of baggage. That yeah, it's just you can kind of feel it when you're using it.
One of the things that I think about regarding to games that I want to work on, I want to do stuff like with avatars that you can export to VRM, and then like you will be able to use like the character from the game, which is very game specific, but then you can take it to other communities. But I wonder how many users will actually use it, and if it will actually affect, you know, the publicity of the game in the VR community.
It does have a huge effect. Like, for example, Craftopia was kind of unknown. This was the studio that made Palworld, but before Palworld, Craftopia was like sort of a whole bunch of different games. The modder came in, added VRM support via a mod. It got so popular, they hired the modder to do official support. And yeah, ever since it kind of had sort of a cult-like following, but sales were way higher after people could bring in their own avatars. They caught on to VTubers. Yeah.
I did not know that.
So, but as I understand, you're talking about loading an existing VRM. I'm
So talking
talking
about
about
exporting.
like exporting. I do like for the game purposes. They need to use the specific
That is a very
character.
interesting study. I think we're only starting to maybe see, like, for example, Decentraland just added VRM export. I just exported all the voxel avatars today again after fixing a bug. But a game that kind of has a bigger sort of following, I mean, any humanoid can become a VRM. But I think the problem is shader compatibility and optimization. I'm trying to solve for two, but I know one is pretty hard. I do have ways, like to kind of a Blender pipeline that basically converts everything to principled BSDF, but it's not any kind of like ready-made solution out there for solving material compatibility. But any humanoid can be a VRM, which any VR chat avatar can be a VRM as well.
Yeah. Because like Unity has like a tool called I think UMA2, which can help you customize avatars, and then I want to combine it with like VRM exporter and
Yeah.
let the players like export the character with the specific like add-ons that they have from the game, like shirts and stuff like that.
There's this plugin. I shielded wherever I can because I just see it as like super underrated in terms of importing and exporting stuff out of Unity and VRChat. But sometimes I think about like if I were to want to kind of concentrate my interop efforts to get a sort of a large population of people to kind of bring their content from one to another place, I would want to build like a knowledge guide or a series for aimed at VR chat creators on how to bring their stuff to like the web, because this plugin and just with some knowledge of some optimization tools and pipelines, like it can be a win-win situation. Like it can be a way that they could release some kind of WebXR sort of mini version or their avatars and whatnot. And
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And I think that the optimizations tools can be part of the VRM exporter itself. I don't see why like it's needs to be like the current pipeline that I see is like doing like export from Unity to VRM, and then you have like a file of more than 10 mega of data, and then you need to like take it to a web tool or to a CLI tool, and it's something that can be ready.
it's true. I noticed actually in VRChat's latest developer update released a few days ago, one part of it said that they're working on a optimization tool. No information yet, but it's going to be part of their SDK. So there are some other avatar optimization tools already that people are using that maybe they're on Gumroad or whatnot. But if you have a Quest sort of like, because they already have incentives with Quest sort of compatibility guidelines that people made optimization tools. And I find that any Quest optimized avatar is really pretty decent for WebXR too. Because also the shaders are pretty, you can't use certain shaders, so a lot of it translates over well.
Mm-hmm. I saw that there was like a few startups that they are like they are similar to Ready Player Me, but like they are focusing on different looks for the avatar based on the game, and then like you have like traits for your avatar, like female, body type, etc. And then like if it's like a game where you're an animal, so you have like an animal avatar with those traits, but then if you are like uh, more realistic like looks in another game, you'll have like same traits but like more realistic avatar, but same clothes and accessories.
Do you have a example game?
I only saw like the site and no game that actually using it. But if I'll see the site again, I'll tell you. Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if like in theory it sounds like a good direction, because then each game can have its own shaders and optimizations and stuff, but it keeps like the data and the looks of the user, the essence of the user. Um,
You mean like how people kind of configure their avatar with all these sort of sliders?
mhm.
Right, yeah.
Because instead, like, oh, we have this mesh and texture, and then load this mesh and texture in every different game, even if it's not really part of the theme of the game. If you like working based on traits and generate different avatars based like on the um, based on the theme and the design
Yeah.
uh, of the game.
Yeah, I am interested in that pipeline. I'm kind of seeing potential with AI, for example. Like, if I trained an AI on my VTuber avatar, and
Mhm.
I created Laura uh, where I could kind of tweak it into all these different aesthetics. And
Mhm.
you kind of see this with Fortnite, like how they have the main characters have Fall Guys edition of their characters. Um, and I just think like, yeah, that is more kind of interrupt than just trying to get the canonical form everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like you can kind of recognize it even if it was a stylized cartoon version, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
traits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the future of interop.
Interesting. Interesting. But how does developers and users make it happen? Because like companies, as they have, they their own interests. Like if it's okay, we do want to have interop, but it's not our top priority, and we have like it's simpler for us to use our own like API or scheme than use like something for like VRM or Ready Player Me, or if proprietary or not proprietary
Yeah.
avatar system.
Have you heard of transition thinking?
No.
I was recommended to check this out a while ago. Damn it. Essentially, it's let me try again. There we go. Okay. So this is.
Am I supposed to see something?
Oh, you don't see it? All right, I'll just link my notes. I'm writing a blog post about this based on a chat I had, kind of learning about it. But the overall thing is you've got kind of landscapes, which is kind of like, the existing kind of values and norms, and then you've got regimes, which is kind of way of doing things, and then you've got niches, and that's where all the innovation happens. And that's like kind of sometimes these smaller working groups or indie platforms experimenting stuff, that are less risk averse and are coming up with new tech practices or business model ideas that could change existing regimes. And it's this whole field of science about how to how it just it's like the whole science of major transitions, and there's some examples, for example, with what's happening in the energy sector, and it gets into some interesting concepts about path dependencies, lock-in, windows of opportunities, and kind of just how to navigate through all that so that the ideas from the niche can eventually bubble up into more of the normie sphere.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, like, if interoperability in our days is something that is possible, because you can look like on Docker containers, not the virtual one. I'm talking about the physical ones that connect to each other physically, and every dock in the world have like the machines and the containers that can connect with each other, and it's massive and it works, and every
Do you see
company.
this picture now?
No, I don't see like a screen on the.
What? Is it happening for anyone else?
Anyone else see what Gene is sharing?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
I don't see anything. No.
That's
But
weird.
I think my UI is a little glitchy at the moment. I might log in and try.
I muted my mic. Damn it.
Were you
No,
gonna
I don't
say?
see anything. My whole screen crashed.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to restart, so I'm not sure what's going on, but audio is working. So
Maybe I've published you.
yeah, it shows some issues with vectors being infinite or something.
Gotta do. Gotta.
Here, I'll just paste a TLDR. Anyway, I want to give up hope because it's like a lot of stuff is possible. We just have to kind of prove it. And I bite my tongue often because I know that it can speak much more louder to have a proof of concept or a demo of what I'm trying to talk about than just trying to talk about it.
I mean, I think, and like, this might be coming from a space of naivety. I'm also high on Michael. But I think that you also need to prove that there's market incentive for this kind of thing, for interoperability. And I think like that's the major reason that the 2D web is still successful, is that and the standards that pop up do inevitably end up being adopted.
I wholeheartedly agree.
I think I mean, like we all exist in the game of capitalism, so we have to like prove that a market exists in order for it to gain investment into it. And that's like part of what we're trying to do at Volu. Is like we're like looking for a way to prove that like WebXR and the spatial web are a good long-term investment and will have a market as big as the 2D web eventually. But it's,
do you have any key insights
like,
so far?
So far, like really, we're just trying to like increase the number of developers. I think like that's our main hypothesis, is that if we lower the barrier of entry, because in my opinion, like for the average like upstart web developer, getting started with WebXR can be pretty challenging. Like the APIs are a little obtuse. 3JS has done a pretty good job of like improving that, but even just like the tooling of just like a 2D screen in VS Code results in kind of like bad experiences. So we're taking the bet on building like a developer platform that is like headset native. And we would have presented something today, but we're a little bit behind. So we're hoping to have something to show you guys. Yeah, like I call it like I'm not trying to pitch the product at all right now. I'm just trying to like, I don't want to derail it into like a pitch for what we're building. But the thesis is like that the like developer environment needs to be in 3D as well in order for it to like truly be unlocked for people, truly be understandable. So like a combination of like classical code editor as well as like some like 3D native tools that are injected into the experience, like basic shit right now, like a console log and a scene inspector, but eventually like WYSIWYG, like drag and drop tools similar to what they're doing over at like Bezier or like ShapesXR, but instead it's real code. Like what frustrates me most about those tools is that it's just building prototypes. It's nothing that's like it's nothing that isn't static. There's no dynamism to it. But still, like our insights right now is that like we're still looking for product market fit. Like we want to increase the number of developers building for the space. So we're trying to find ways to incentivize those developers to create more stuff, and also like the folks like us who are like building little prototypes here and there, and just sharing out videos and demos. Like I think we're trying to make it easier to share those prototypes. Like if you like just put it on our platform, similar to like CodePen or something like that, we make it very easy to like share that outward and then open it up on the headset. We have some ideas for that, but like we're all ears to ideas. Like we're like trying to like raise the tide for all of us so that like everyone working in space can start making some money, and like it becomes less of a hobby and passion project to like an actual like job. But
yeah,
so far like we're facing a lot of the problem. Yeah, I mean, so far we're facing a lot of the problems you guys are describing, right? Like interoperability is a challenge. Like I'm testing against both the Quest and the Vision Pro, even though the Vision Pro is like not the market to bet on right now. Like I'm testing against both of them. Vision Pro is so limited in terms of its WebXR capabilities. And like in some ways justifiably so, but for the most part, like I'm of the conspiracy theory that like it's intentionally held back. in order to incentivize people to build native instead. That's just the way Apple's always operated. But
I want like add malicious intent to that. Like it does, relate to priority. It's like, okay, which team is bigger and has more resources and stuff, but they do have a team that dedicated to that, and they really
trust
do
me, yeah, I know.
and
I know. I worked there. I tried to get on that team before I left to do a startup, and like I just saw a startup being more worthwhile or more fun, and like have more creative control over what I'm doing. But I mean, like they're just deprioritized. Like it's not like the team itself is being malicious about anything. It's more that they're not as well, like they don't get as much attention or resources as, say, like the people building the native apps developer tools, because there's, like you said, a larger market incentive to do that. They can get more money, like from their like 30% tax, etc. And that's not like, again, like I don't, I wouldn't call it malicious. I just call it like market dynamics. Like,
Is this showing
you
up?
need to show that. It's interesting.
Yes, I can see that.
Ah,
Yeah, that's showing. I see it.
yeah. I mean, directionally, kind of have very similar aligned goals in terms of boosting the developer community, but I'm kind of looking for ways that we can recycle content. Do you see it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, like this was brought in from VRChat, and it's not even like a complicated process. This is loading from my VRChat cache, so you can get some really good looking worlds, even with some interactivity like those fans in this room and PBR. This is in Babylon JS. And just finding ways to kind of reduce friction for creators that are making content, maybe in some other platforms, to bring it to the web. Just one example of such.
Yeah.
Versus like rebuilding from scratch, which is so tedious.
It is. There's that. Like, there's like it's variety. Like, our goal is like variety of content as well. Like, we want people creating brand new, like, unique experiences. The other thing, like when we talk to investors, is like it's like they ask what the killer app is, and like our goal as a company is to figure out what that is, like, because no one's truly figured it out yet, in my opinion.
My hunch on that is something kind of like big screen, kind of like what Vision OS is built around, with personas plus volumetric networked apps. Like if you could have social plus network screen share or networked apps, those two primitives together could open up a lot of possibilities. That's kind of like what people hang around in Discord screen sharing do. It's also not competing with the whole internet and other video games. It's composing with them.
Oh, totally. And I think like I think gradually things will become more 3D, and not just like, I mean, games are like inherently 3D, so it's easy for that content to show up in a headset. But I think you'll see
it's
as
not
like
easy.
things like
I've tried. I really want to play
easy,
games
quote
in
unquote,
3D.
Easy, quote unquote, like easy, like in
Yeah.
that the ideas translate, not like converting, like creating a VR game is not dissimilar from creating like a 2D game, like in Unity. There are different design principles, but the underlying technology is roughly the same. Whereas like creating like an app, our whole idea is like using Unity to create an app, I think, is insane. Like, it's just like a tool that's just not designed for it. And so right now people are just using Swift, which has some interesting 3D elements. And like it will grow out. I mean, I love the web only just a little bit more than I love like Swift. I think Swift is a great, like, I think Reality Kit is a pretty solid engine. And the only reason it's like kind of slept on is because it's only for the Apple platform. If they had opened it up to run on other devices, then which is just not possible, like because it's so like built into the operating system.
Swift has started coming more cross-platform, hasn't it? Because I remember Ladybird announced that that's the language that they're going to be moving towards once Swift 6 releases, I think.
Swift for sure is, but I'm talking about like Reality Kit, like the engine. Yeah, Swift like it is cross-platform. It is open source, but they're like Reality Kit is just built on top of like APIs for the Vision Pro. It's not. I don't think. I mean, this is where like my knowledge starts because I'm very much a prototyper, like proving app concepts and building on the high-level APIs. So I'd like totally defer to you. But like Reality Kit would have to be built on top of WebXR or something like that, like open APIs in order to run on other platforms. And right now it's just built on top of Metal and like ARKit, like other core APIs of like the Apple platform. But if you have time for it, Reality Kit's fucking dope. I loved it. I built so much stuff on that that just got thrown away, but it was probably the fastest I'd ever built things straight from code. And I'm hoping like 3JS or I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, mentioning how like it's built on like Metal and ARKit. There were recently Metal bindings added to OpenXR, although not from Apple, from Meta, because they ported their XR simulator to macOS, and that simulator is basically its
nice
OpenXR runtime. I just thought it was funny that like the Metal bindings came from just somebody at Meta.
Of course it did. I think like Apple has no profit incentive to make their shit cross-platform.
Yeah, I think
like they want you deep in that ecosystem.
I don't know, maybe
and like, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I am neck deep in that ecosystem. I've got pretty much all of it. But I still think it should be. Yeah, I'm like going back to like being a little bit of a capitalist. I'm like, it should be, they should win on merit, not on ecosystem lock-in. And right now they're not winning on merit, and they're not winning at all. Like, I think that's why you're seeing more WebXR support on the headset. It's because no one is building Vision OS native apps right now.
Yeah, no, I actually a couple of days ago I saw a WebXR app that like specifically had Vision Pro support in mind. It was this like kind of like Vietnamese history gallery type thing. I'll post it.
Oh, neat. That's cool.
Very cool.
I think this is and it was the first WebXR thing I've seen that was like very heavy on like gestural interaction. Like you use hand tracking, you like pinch and rotate to scale. You like move your hands apart and you can like get a blown out version of the model, and then you can like condense it back just by moving your hands back together. I had not seen that in any other experiences yet, and I thought that was pretty neat.
That's dope.
That is cool.
I think where like if you go check out like, and it's totally like minimum viable or minimum product right now. But if you go check out our demo, it has Vision Pro support, and it's very much like, I mean, because I worked on a Vision Pro team, so it's just out of like obligation. Like I feel like like it's necessary for us to support Vision Pro because I'm like I helped work on that thing. I own one. I want like I feel some affinity towards it still, despite my political disbeliefs. I mean, like disagreements. So I'm very
Competition
much,
is good.
Yeah, competition's good, but
Yeah.
like their approach to it's not great. But I also love showing that like you can. I have friends who still work there who just don't believe that WebXR is good, like a good idea or like it's going to be viable on the headset. And I'm just like, listen, I'm dancing around you guys, because they're like they're fully like bought into they've sipped the Kool-Aid quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that you're seeing that strategy play out where it's like we only want to support Swift and Reality Kit development play out in terms of just a dearth of content. And and I get it. Like I understand like you want to win the mind share. And also Reality Kit is a very capable sort of 3D engine, and there's technical underpinnings for them sort of believing that and trying to figure out how to make content sticky to their platform by using a language that you can't deploy anywhere else and a game engine you can't deploy anywhere else. So there's definitely that classic lock-in sort of strategy in play. I was really annoyed when we were on site at the developer labs in October of last year, and when I told them that like we were prototyping in a WebXR, but our goal was to use React Native. The guy running the developer lab said, "Oh no, you can't do that. It's going to be way too slow." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean too slow? Like too many cache misses or whatever?" And this guy was not a low-level programmer. He didn't know. He was a developer, but like he was not a low-level developer. I'm like, be specific. What do you mean? And he couldn't be specific.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But what fucking annoyed me is that I was there with my designer because I'd like to have a developer and designer come on site for the labs. And after lunch, when I went to go to the bathroom, he actually cornered my designer and said, "Hey, your engineer is making really bad decisions. Your app will just not perform on this device if you aren't using Unity or Reality Kit." And that's shady might be too strong of a word, but I don't appreciate
I think
it.
it's shitty.
Like,
I think it's petty. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, no, I'm there with you. I think that's a little unnecessary. And
that's
I've
a good
heard
word.
similar
Yeah.
things there. Yeah.
That's a good word. And I told what's her name? Ada? Is that
Ada Rose Cannon. Yeah, she's
Yeah, there
great.
you go.
I'm
Yeah,
such
yeah.
a fangirl for her. Like, oh my god,
Absolutely.
she's so dope.
Absolutely. And I kind of let her know, like, hey, just so you know, in the developer labs, here's what they told us, which means that I presume they're telling everybody this. But I still feel like unless you're extremely technical and can kind of understand why and how WebXR can make kind of native parity experiences, I think that there's just as much incorrect bluster on the other side of the equation, where people go, WebXR is amazing because whatever, and it's like, okay, cool, show me real-time ambient occlusion, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know technically it's feasible, and we maybe some other people here are technical enough to know that, but you find a lot of people that are enthusiastic for kind of the wrong reasons, and they're as much full of shit as the people that are like native rules and web sucks, just because they're operating on incomplete or inaccurate perceptions or information.
No, I totally agree. I think like my whole thesis is that like, and like it's not like I don't think it's controversial. It's like the web is where things go to like be incubated. Like it's the place where
absolutely, yep.
Like you figure out what the platform is for, and then like it's just natural for like the manufacturers or like Meta or Apple will like close up their like ecosystem a little bit more as like the killer apps are discovered and people move to native and they tailor their tools to support those killer apps.
That's the cycle, and it was the same in the 80s as it was on PCs, and then we get stuff that happened in the Wild West of PCs would get codified into Solaris or to IRIX or commercial operating systems, right? And kind of proprietary hardware. So the corporate names change, but the cycle.
Mobile. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Same thing happened on mobile. Same thing happened on the desktop in the 90s. I think as soon as the web hit, then everyone started buying one. So I think it's like, and Meta's sort of seeing that. I think like they definitely put in a more investment in like WebXR support. I think we all have like disagreements on how they promote that support. Like I think the new tab page is definitely, and like M2, you and I have discussed this before. Like it's definitely like a brick wall in terms of discovery. It's a little bit like the one thing that hamstrings all of it, in my opinion. But like no, it's like people need to be able to explore, and I think making that easier for people will allow it's what's going to make your product worth it. Like I think Apple, and my co-founder is also a former Apple like designer, but he was from like the iPad Steve Jobs era, and like he always says he's like totally agreement. Steve was a little bit of an asshole, but he was like definitely more to like building great products rather than like focusing on like bean counting. And like bean counting is an inevitability, but like he was more open to like hacking and
right.
good ideas came from everyone. Like the engineers had just as much a say as design. Now since he's gone, like the design org, like what they say is law, and everyone has to follow it. So they don't really listen to feedback from anywhere else in the organization. Like all of us, like a little inside baseball is that all of us were saying that the headset was too heavy from like very early on. Like everyone who was living on it and working on it every day were like, this is really cool, we're very hyped about it, but it's too heavy. And they completely ignored that feedback. And like it hurts my face, blah 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 blah, and like the feedback, it felt like everything was falling on deaf ears.
Well, apparently HTC made that same mistake with the Vive XR Elite, so
it's okay. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
And hopefully they learn their lesson with this one. Like, but they do. The culture at Apple is such that it's like if you're not a zealot, then
you're a non-believer. It's binary.
If you're it's like either you totally believe in us, and like they don't really do UX research anymore. It's like the designers know better than the users, and so like they just ignore whatever the users say. It's like, you're wrong, you're just gonna listen to what we say. And what's funny, I have one friend who works there, and he got one of those like forehead, like the 3D printed like forehead mount for the Vision Pro. Like so it's more like the Quest Pro, and he uses it in the office at Apple. And the designers, like one of the designers came by and like, that's not how it's meant to be worn. And he's like, it's more comfortable like than the faceplate. Like it's like, this is better. So it's not about like your design was wrong. I'm not wrong, you're wrong. Like I'm more comfortable, I as the user am correct. Like
well, I mean, also it's kind of like asking engineers to estimate something 6 months out. It's like the designers can't predict the future. And so, but if they're like saying like, we can predict the future, or we can make the taste, be the taste maker, and then what we say becomes fact, I think that, and it is hard to have that balance of how do you do something visionary where you have to have an incredible amount of self-belief, and then balance that with, we just have to learn, like we need to get this out, do something visionary, and then figure out, does this actually work? And there's that Henry Ford quote about like, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have wanted a horse that didn't shit, not a car. And so there's, I think it's a hard balance psychologically for an individual, and an org can either make that more imbalanced through through the culture and checks and balances and the kind of having your peers challenge you in a good way, or the org can, make it more balanced or kind of less balanced depending on the leadership and the kind of culture. But I think that, Steve and I think that Steve understood that, like, you need the 1,000 monkeys at the 1,000 typewriters, right? You need a bunch of people trying to, like, fuck around with the Altair 8800 to get PCs, to get like that idea factory kind of going where a bunch of people have agency that you don't even know who they are, and there's a lack of control there that can make some people really nervous. But then you can, like, wait 6 months and look at the ideas that are being replicated within that community organically and go, there it is. And sometimes it takes not 6 months, but a little bit longer. But I think also there's another piece of it in terms of the asshole factor. I don't think anyone should be cruel on purpose, but I think that as organizations get larger, politics that are not
kind of have to
aligned,
be.
well, just politics that aren't aligned with making great products, they get in the way. They're antithetical, and you need to sometimes not punch someone in the nose, but look them straight in the fucking eye and say, why are you trying to fuck up my company? Why are you doing this? Right? And also just eject people immediately when they do something that is optimizing locally for their career or optics instead of product outcomes. And I think that
that was a huge problem over there, like optimizing for your own self-interest. Like things got very political even at, like, the lower levels, and that's not a complaint or anything like that. Like I was actually quite good at it, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. Like like it just didn't seem like I went there because I fell for the line where it's like, we build the best products. I'm like, cool, I want to build the best products.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like mom and apple pie. It's like you're not going to say, like, I don't want to build the best products. Who the fuck wants to do that?
Yeah, of course I want to build the greatest thing to ever exist. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it just it stopped being that very quickly. It just isn't that anymore. Like it's a bunch of people optimizing. They think they're hot shit because they work at Apple, rather than like they're there to become hot shit, or they, like, you don't stay that, you have to maintain it.
I found Google to be the same way in the mid 2000s because of the that and same thing with Microsoft in the 90s. Like, their interview process was legend, both Microsoft and Google in those different eras, and Google modeled their whole thing after the Microsoft thing of that kind of problem solving interview or whatever. But then that meant once people got in the door, they thought they were like God's gift, even though they just were fresh out of MIT and could barely wipe their own ass. And I think Google ended up realizing what. One second, yes, kid. You can do some workbooks. You want to do some workbooks? Do the Beast Academy workbook, please. Like, how do you have a culture of high performers by default, but again, like, retain that humility? It's that same balancing act. It's I'd say it's hard with a capital H, and that's not to excuse anything Google or Apple or Microsoft or whoever when their cultures got lopsided in certain ways. It's just an explanation where it's like, you might try to come at it from a different angle and kind of end up in the same place, but at least you tried something different. But there's a lot of companies that go like, no, we're trying to exactly replicate Google from when it was an innovation factory. And it's like, well, that approach is interesting, but you realize it produced the culture that produced the kind of concrete shoes that they eventually wore for, until like this last 6 months or something, where they had to just develop a bunch of muscles that they had purposefully not developed. Where if there is any product internally that got in the way of 5 blue links plus ads, it would just get killed immediately. And
Yeah.
and Microsoft had the same thing where it was like Microsoft Research had $1 billion budget every single year, and they productized very, very little. And it was all like, is this going to sell more Windows and Office or not? And if it didn't, that was it. And there's a bunch of great prototypes and ideas, especially in the kind of, I'd say the general XR space, like Illumaroom or whatever else, where it didn't make it out of the lab really, because of that kind
There's
of
also like
micro focus.
Yeah, and there's also like something to be said for like both cultures, and again like I still know people at Apple, and I have a bunch of friends over at Google who are like product managers or like they're leads on a project, something like that, and there's no like being wrong is bad. Like like if your product is wrong or your feature is wrong, that's a black mark on you. That's a ding against you. Like so if you're building something, your goal isn't to prove the hypothesis one way or another. There's no scientific method to it. It's just like like it's literally just you if you're not right, you have to force yourself to be right. So the wrong solution often ends up at the top because if you openly say I was wrong, this is not like the good solution, then like people are like, then why are you here? We pay you to be right. So it's like you need to build it. Like there's not a culture of like experimentation and trial and error. There's a culture of like you're either right or you're not here.
Yeah,
and resources.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't know. I feel like there's some stuff from like the early days of agile and extreme programming where it's like, how do you fail fast and cheap? Right? Failure is great if you can do it fast and cheap. And because that's still learning, right? And that's discarding the bad ideas, and sometimes to get to the good ideas, you have to work through a couple of not literally bad ideas that are like, that's a dumb idea, but sometimes the opposite of a good idea is a great idea. And that's a dichotomy I think people have trouble wrapping their brains around, even if they're not bean counters. And there's like a certitude and a bravado that people glom onto in technology, I feel, where whereas I always felt like going to the C-suite and saying like, we did 3 prototypes in 4 months, and now we know what to build, and now we know what needs staffing and funding, because we know what doesn't work, and here's the data, and now we know that those are the landmines, and you have the map of the landmines, and now we know what the path forward is that avoids the kind of landmines. But there's some people that will double and triple down on the whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I removed some image in the background. I'm on AVP, and the when I talk, I use my hands to gesture, and
No
I
worries.
clicked on something. But there's people that are like, no, I want to be Nostradamus. I want to have a hypothesis and be right the first time. And what it makes people do is it makes people not listen to data, cover up data, and it just doesn't yield the best ideas or the best product, because people think failure is bad, and it's like, well, if you have to spend $1 billion just to fail, that sucks. But if you can spend $100,000 to fail, that's a lot better, and do it in a shorter time frame. But that's just not the way. It doesn't jive with corporate posturing, and I think also it doesn't jive with fragile egos. And frankly, I think a lot of nerds have fragile egos from being nerds and being bullied when they were younger. And so they want to keep that validation train going, and as when they are an adult, or ostensibly are physically an adult anyway.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's also the types of nerds that end up there.
Sure.
It's all the people who like study, like at least in my experience, when we were hiring people, I'd be the one guy raising the thing. It was like, this person really just studied for the coding interview. Like, I'm very confident they're not a good engineer.
Yep.
And even now, like as a CEO of a startup, like I see, like, I'm on the other side of it. I'm like, yeah, it's just really hard to sift through all these bullshitters. Like, these are all people who are like
teaching
just
to the
studying for
test.
code interview.
Yep.
Yeah, teaching to the who have been taught to the test, and it's like not their fault. But as soon as they
Nope.
get there, like I had a lot of people who claim to be very smart, and like coworkers who like literally like as soon as they got the job, they just coasted. I'm like, I'm here to build something really cool. That's part of the reason I came here. Like I got so jaded very quickly because I'm like, I came here to like build something that will like fundamentally change change people's daily lives. You came here to collect RSUs and a paycheck.
Yep. Yep. And it can really grind your soul down into a powder where you're just like, okay, I am outnumbered 10,000 to 1 by, and there's just, it's not those individuals' fault, right? This is what they're being told, and no one's born knowing like what the true reality of these things are and stuff like that. But any job, even for principal engineer at Roblox, when they're like, we want you to do a lead code thing, I said no. I said, if that's literally how you're evaluating people, then that's an immediate red flag. An immediate red flag for me. You can go talk to my references and figure out what I can and can't do. You can look at a 27-year career and figure out what I can and can't do. But if you want me to tap dance on command and put semicolons in the right place, and that's how you're evaluating any engineers actually coming into your org, that to me means I'm gonna have a big fucking cleanup problem later. And that's, by the way, exactly what the fuck happened. They let me skip the lead code, but that's not lead code. There's some other evaluation platform like that. And but when I got in, yeah, it was like everybody who knew how to reverse a linked list because they'd memorized the answer from cracking the coding interview just said like, oh, this person's like a genius. They did really well in the interview or whatever. It's like, what can they learn? Can they only memorize? You know? And there were definitely interns and people that could adapt and could learn, but the majority were just like they got in the door and then same deal, like rest and vest sort of a situation, which is annoying.
Yeah, I think one of my like, because I'm terrible at coding interviews, like wholeheartedly. I can't memorize anything for shit. Like, and like to me, it's just not engineering. I'm like, okay, you've given me 45 minutes to solve some Sudoku problem, and I fucking hate. Like, it's not even that I couldn't do it. It's just I hate the problem. I'm like, this is so boring. Like, I don't want to do this. It's like dull, and I'm not like interested in doing this thing, and it's kind of just annoying. So I end up. Like I've never done well in a coding interview in my life just because of that reason. But I got my job there through interning. Like, and I think that's like probably the best way to hire someone if you have the money to do it. Like, so you look at someone's resume, you read their references, you talk to them, and they're like, okay, you have 3 months to prove to me that you can like do this job. And like. That worked. Like I was able to do that. I got the job just based on that. I never had to do a technical again. But it's those people who were like, and the other thing that bothered me about like just working in that big company, and it's true everywhere. It's just like those people who aren't great at, like the people who were really good at their job were kept in their positions. They were locked into being individual contributors. Whereas like the people who were mediocre at like being an engineer floated upward because it's easier to promote them than it is to like fire them and let them go. So they ended up being managers and deciding direction and things like that. And they don't want to see like, and that creates the culture of like, oh, I can't fail, so I have to like stab someone in the back or something like that to make sure that my product, which I've proven is wrong, ends up like winning overall. And like, so it becomes a culture driven by fear rather than like fear and mediocrity rather than like just good quality and like good quality people who are passionate about the product.
Well, and also it's kind of granola, but uplifting each other, where it's like when someone makes a mistake, instead of going, here's my opportunity, it's like, being like, it seemed like a good idea and it didn't work out. But now we know what not to do. And often in those situations, people will pounce and go like, "Aha, mistake! Here's my chance." And
Yeah.
what I told the executives at the last company that I was at a couple of years ago was I was like, what you're telegraphing right now is exactly the behavior that you will accept. And you think it's going to keep being just these 5 terrible people acting this way. Once people know this is what you will accept, everyone will optimize to that this is the culture that will get gamified, not what you've written down on a Confluence page as the company values, but what you're showing and what you will accept. And they were like, well, we disagree. And guess what the fuck happened? Like, you know, and one of them sent me a private note and said, just said, I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you. Because I went through I was leaving anyways, and I was going to retire before I started this XR thing. And so I went to HR and I'm like, here's all the documentation for these terrible people doing these terrible things. Here's someone like assigning all their unfinished work to somebody else at 11:59 and 20 seconds the day before the quarterly business review. Here's another person saying these terrible things in Slack to try to scare people into whatever. And they just, didn't want to act on it. It was like, and I get it, like it's hard, but like that's their fucking job. They're not in HR because it's an easy job. Like humans are tough. But yeah, recruiting is hard and retention is hard. All these things are really hard.
And like my first manager at Apple was just an utter prick. Like he was just like, and I saw the red flags at first, but I was an intern, didn't know any better. And I thought it was like, if I said I don't want to work under that guy, it would mean I would just like not get the job. Mm-hmm. And which wasn't the case. Like I could have said, I'd rather work with this person. They seem like it would be more productive. But like that plus the pandemic, like no one saw what was going on. And the dude was like obsessed with Japanese work culture. He's like, you work all the time, you work through weekends.
Oh, wow.
And like he was just straight up abusive. And like when I voiced it to his manager was like, well, he just does so much work, like because the guy was also an engineer, he was a technical lead, and he was just like constantly writing code. But I also raised the fact like his code is unreadable. Like it's like he wrote for every like one line of code, he wrote like 10 comments. It was like reading like Tolkien if he were a Swift developer.
Sure.
And
macho like programming. How many ternaries can I nest? How much density can I get per line to show people how huge my EP is?
It wasn't even that. It was just like if he did not have the like he it was very much a PhD. He felt like he had to explain everything. So he had comments. It's like this is the start of an if statement. This is the end of an if statement.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, like for every line there was at least one comment. I was like, dude, I can't read the actual code. Like you can assume that I'm not stupid, that I have a master's degree and can like read code. And like, so that plus the dude was just completely abusive. And like Apple very much like, I took it to his manager. I was like, dude, I can't work for this guy. He's like uncontrolled. Like he's just totally out of control and like invading my personal life and things like that. Like telling me how I should spend my time. And all for the sake of this stupid little project. Like it was the dumbest little thing, but he was so obsessed with it. Like this isn't worth it. It's like it's pixels on a screen. None of this is worth it. Like humble yourself just a little bit. Like you're not changing the world. Like it didn't make it to HR until it just got entirely out of control. And I went and raised it to HR and like. But it was like years of that. And like I said, like the wrong people are put in charge and then no one wants to admit that they were wrong. So they just commit to the idea. And if someone produces a lot of code, like, or seems like they're doing really well, and like pushing the product forward, then they will get, like management will be disincentivized to deal with what is a clear problem.
At that same last job, there were some engineers who were kind of legendary in terms of their productivity when you look at their rate of merged commits. But we had this major instability problem, and I've talked about this at a couple of conferences without naming the company. And what I found is that I had to kind of correlate between feature flags and crash reporting and commits and code reviews. And what I found when I kind of correlated across those pieces of kind of developer operational data is there were two people in the company that were causing 90% of the crashes, and the crashes were still in the millions, even after we reduced the crash rate by 90% by porting React into Lua and porting GraphQL into Lua and stuff. Like there were this million crashes we just could not like get rid of. Every time we would fix 100,000 of them, there'd be another thing, and it was only when you looked at feature flag flips, A/B tests, crash reporting, and code reviews and whatever that you figured out like, oh, it's these two people in the entire company that were legends. But when you look at the actual end-to-end operational productivity, they're actually the worst in terms of make work and whatever else. And the other thing that I did was I was able to kind of go like, the whole company culture was like, well, crashes, who cares? But I was able to show like, okay, you're trying to make it so that teenagers will want to use this platform. But what I was able to show is that people above the age of 14, if they got a crash in their first session, their 14-day retention was like less than 5%. But if they didn't have a crash in their first session, their 14-day retention was like 15%. And regardless of geography or what, if they were on mobile or desktop or whatever, it was very consistent. It's logical, but it was only then that they were like, oh shit, I guess stability matters. Diving into the data in that way, all that it did was literally get me screamed at by those individuals who were and their managers who were the cause of it, because it was messing up their sort of success story, if you will. But I was like, listen, this isn't about a personal attack on you. It's if you want to grow this platform beyond 11-year-olds, people older than 11 have higher expectations, and if you don't want to meet those expectations, then you don't want to grow the business. And this was a public company by this point, so it was like, that's not the ball game right now. It was not great. I think the other thing that sucks about going to HR and trying to be a good citizen for the rest of your colleagues is then you get to be known as a squeaky wheel, and that's fucking annoying. Even if your colleagues who, by kind of documenting things, it kind of helps curtail some of that behavior, because then people have to be less egregious about it. So there's uplift there, and you get colleagues that appreciate you and whatever else. But the C-suite might go like, oh yeah, that person like kicked off an parallel HR investigations that are legal, blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, is that a me problem?
Hire better people. I think I know the exact company that you're talking about, and I interviewed for them at one point, and I didn't go forward because I was pretty rude to the recruiter. I was just like, what you're describing doesn't make sense, and honestly isn't a good product, and I don't think I would use it. Because they were looking for someone to do something. I was like, no, I want to be part of whatever your XR play is, and if you're not making an XR play, you're foolish. And the platform you're building doesn't seem to be compatible with that just yet, because of all the legacy code that you could see from the outside. It's like this thing was built years ago. And
absolutely. I remember when I was interviewing and I went to go try their applications. I tried it on Xbox, and the app wasn't even compatible with controller. I couldn't really get into any experiences and then I tried it on mobile, and it just performed like dog shit. And I remember a person who referred me in went to business school with my husband, and I asked this guy, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on over there? And he's just like, this is why they need your help. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. All right. And I was able to make a difference, and I felt like I earned my money and whatever. But but yeah, there was a bunch of red flags. They eventually did try to like go into XR, but only in reaction to Horizon. They really like, oh my god,
Yeah.
we're going to get frozen out of this platform. So they did this like rush job that took like 3 times as long as originally estimated. Again, because there's this culture of no accountability and people optimizing for optics instead of outcomes. And so they shipped on the platform.
I lost you there. I think you may have disconnected.
Yeah.
Yep. Just the middle of a.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Is he back?
Yes, he just rejoined.
Matt, you back? I think we lost you.
Just enter. Waiting for his avatar to show up in the starting area as well. Yeah, I know a couple people have also told me they've had connection issues trying to get to hub here, which I haven't hit myself, but I wonder
Yeah.
if he's hitting that right now because I think he should have.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear me. My UI is totally frozen. I just see a blank screen. I can just hear you guys.
I had it too. I switched browsers and now I got back.
Huh.
I rejoined.
Yeah, I'm
a couple
sitting on a. I'm using Arc, guys. You got to switch to Arc. No, I think. No, if we weren't building what we're building now, I'd be building like a mixed reality version of this. I'm much more into like if like right now I'm coming from desktop. I'd be more inclined to join from headset or like an MR app.
If I didn't have to
I think WebXR in general.
Then I would be in headset, but it's a little cumbersome to reposition and be immersed.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's just like put everyone in mixed reality and sort of like put them in a ring or in a circle.
That's a shame. I forgot he was on AVP too, so there might have also been a quirk there.
Yeah. One of the 10 people who owns one.
I am curious what the tally for that in the WebXR Discord is, because I have one, Jin has one, you have one. I know Anthony from 3OV has one. Yeah, there are.
I'm pretty sure. What's his name? Diego has one.
Oh yeah. I remember because he crowdfunded it.
Yeah. Which is very smart of him. Like he knows that he can bank on his his users to do something. Yeah, I've met him before. He's a good guy. I'm not a huge fan of A-Frame, but he does seem to be reinvesting in it. It does seem to be finally like evolving again, which is nice to see.
I have to hop off now, guys, so this will cut off the stream. Feel free to stick around and chat a little more if you want, but I'm out. Thanks for coming.
I think I'm going to jump too. Matt, I sent you a LinkedIn request, I believe. So chat some other time. Feel free to hit me up on the Discord.
I'm helping out as well. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.